The red planet, silent, distant, ancient. For centuries, Mars has been a mirror for our curiosity, a world that seems frozen in time, quietly orbiting beneath a thin veil of dust. But Mars is not as lifeless as it looks. Every few years the stillness breaks, the air begins to move, and from that motion rises a storm so vast it can hide an entire world from the sun. In this journey, we'll uncover how a cold, barren planet can come alive, how dust becomes wind and wind becomes power. Let's step into the calm before the storm and witness how Mars breathes. When we look at Mars, through the eyes of our robotic explorers, it feels like a world frozen in silence, a place of stillness, flat plains of red dust stretching endlessly beneath a salmon sky broken only by scattered rocks and the faint whisper of wind. At first glance it seems peaceful, timeless, almost dead. But if we stay long enough, we'll notice something strange on the horizon, a faint haze beginning to rise, a shimmering curtain of dust creeping across the distance. Within hours, that haze becomes a wall. Within days, it becomes a storm so vast it could swallow continents. And within weeks, it grows into a force that engulfs an entire planet. Every few Martian years, this silent world awakens. It breathes, it roars, and its storms stretch from pole to pole, blotting out the sun for months at a time. For any machine we send there, or any human who dreams of following these storms, are not just weather, they are survival. Let's journey together into the heart of these Martian tempests to understand how a planet so quiet can become a world of motion and fury. Mars wasn't always this way. Billions of years ago, it had a thick atmosphere warm enough to let rivers flow and lakes glimmer across its valleys. There were clouds, rainfall, perhaps even long seasons. But over time, something changed. Mars's magnetic field faded. Its atmosphere began to bleed into space. The warmth vanished, the seas turned to frost, and the planet dried until only dust remained. Today, Mars's air is less than 1% as thick as Earth's. That thin veil barely holds heat. By day, you might stand at the equator and feel a fleeting warmth of 25 degrees Celsius at your feet, but at head height, the air has already fallen to zero. By night, the temperature can plunge below 130 degrees Celsius. This extreme swing between day and night drives powerful winds, but not the kind we know on Earth. Here, there is no water cycle to shape weather, only a cycle of dust. Dust has become Mars's ocean. It rises, falls, and moves across the planet like a tide. And within it, Mars hides its storms. Everything begins with a single particle of dust. When sunlight warms, the Martian ground hot air starts to rise, and cooler air rushes in to replace it. These shifting columns twist into spirals that become dust devils, towering mini tornadoes that can reach 8 kilometers high, swirling with orange sand. There are thousands of them every year, most appearing during Martian spring and summer. They race across the desert plains, sucking fine dust from the surface and throwing it into the sky. Behind them, the world darkens slightly, the beginning of a planet-wide haze that never fully disappears. But dust devils aren't the only culprits. The real mechanism that fills Mars's air is called saltation, a process where larger grains of sand bounce along the ground, crashing into smaller grains and knocking them loose. It might sound simple, but it's a chain reaction. Because Martian dust is electrostatic, particles cling together like tiny magnets. It takes energy momentum to break them apart. When larger grains move, they slam into others, releasing the fine powder that becomes airborne. Once in the air, Mars' weak gravity and thin atmosphere keep that dust suspended for weeks or even months. And this is where things begin to spiral out of control. Dust particles are small, but they are excellent at absorbing sunlight. As they warm, they heat the air around them, making it rise. and as it rises more, wind rushes in to replace it, lifting even more dust. It's a self-feeding cycle. Heat creates wind, wind creates dust, and dust creates more heat. Before long, a single local storm begins to grow, spreading out across the surface like ripples on water, each ripple adding to the next until a continent is cloaked in red. Not all Martian dust storms are deadly. Most are regional, brief, and pass within a few days. The strongest winds reach about 97 kilometers per hour, roughly half the speed of a hurricane on Earth. And yet, because the air is so thin, you wouldn't feel much pressure if you stood in it. The danger isn't the wind itself, it's what the wind carries. A fine powder that clings to solar panels darkens the sky and turns sunlight into twilight. Every Martian year during the southern hemisphere's spring and summer, Mars comes closer to the sun. It warms up, and this warmth stirs up more dust storms than usual. Sometimes these smaller storms drift together, merging into something massive, a superstorm that can stretch for thousands of kilometers. But once every 3 Martian years, roughly 5.5 Earth years, the planet seems to take a deeper breath. Storms merge and expand until Mars becomes a single swirling sphere of dust. No sunlight, no visible surface, just a red ghost hanging in the void. We still don't fully understand why this happens so regularly. Perhaps the planet needs time to restock its dust supply, or maybe there's an atmospheric rhythm we haven't yet uncovered. Whatever the reason, these global storms are among the most dramatic natural events in our solar system and the deadliest for anything that tries to survive them. For our robotic explorers, these storms are not just awe-inspiring, they're lethal. To measure sunlight on Mars, scientists use something called aerosol optical depth, or AOD. Normally, it's about 0.5, perfectly fine for rovers like Opportunity to recharge. When AOD reaches 2, energy becomes scarce. A major Earth wildfire might reach an AOD of 7, but during a Martian global storm, AOD can soar to 10 or even 11, a near total blackout. In 2018, Opportunity, which had roamed Mars for over 14 years, faced one of these storms. Its solar panels, coated in thick dust, could no longer capture light. The sky turned black for weeks. Cut off from energy, the rover fell silent. When temperatures dropped below freezing, its internal systems cracked and froze. It never woke again. In a poetic way, the rover's final sleep became part of Mars itself, buried beneath the dust it once studied. Even nuclear-powered rovers like Curiosity or Perseverance aren't immune. During these storms, the thick dust clouds can block communication between Mars and Earth. Satellites in orbit have to adjust their positions as the atmosphere swells from heat or risk falling out of the sky. A single storm can disrupt every machine on the planet, above and below. Now imagine this not as a machine, but as a person. You're living on Mars in a base powered by sunlight. You wake one morning and the horizon has vanished. The sky, once pink, is the colour of rust. The sun is no brighter than a candle through fog. A fine red dust coats everything, the airlocks, the solar panels, even your suit. Within days, your energy reserves run low. The heaters weaken. The silence inside the base grows louder than the wind outside. Communication with Earth fades, replaced by static. For weeks you can't go out. There's no horizon, no sunlight, no way to know when the storm will pass. You start to realise that survival here isn't about science or engineering, it's about endurance. If humans are ever to live on Mars, we'll need more than technology. We'll need patience, independence, and the will to face months of isolation without the guarantee of light. Because on Mars, darkness doesn't fall. It lingers. Eventually, every storm dies. When dust thickens enough to block sunlight, the surface stops warming. Without warmth, the air can no longer rise. The winds slow, the dust falls, and the storm starves itself into silence. The red planet exhales once more. The sun returns weak, at first a pale glow breaking through the haze. Rovers awaken from hibernation. The solar panels, now dusted clean by new winds, flicker back to life. Mars looks quiet again, just as it always has. But that stillness is deceptive, it's only resting. As of today, 3 rovers still roam the Martian surface: Curiosity, Perseverance and China's Zhurong. Of them, Zhurong relies on solar power. The last global storm was in 2018. If the pattern holds true, the next one could already be forming invisible distant, waiting for the right spark of warmth to rise again. It will begin with a whisper, a few grains of dust lifted by the wind. Then the air will shimmer, and once again, Mars will breathe. And then the storm fades. The dust falls. The sunlight returns. Mars grows still again, as if nothing ever happened. But we know better now. Beneath its silence, this planet moves to a rhythm, one of heat and cold light, and shadow, calm and chaos. Its storms are not destruction, they are its heartbeat. Someday we might stand there ourselves, feeling the whisper of that thin air against our suits, watching the horizon shimmer red. And maybe, as we look up into that pale sunless sky, we'll realise something: Mars isn't dead. It's just waiting to remind us that even a world made of dust can still breathe, still change, still live. I'm your guide, and this is Cosmic Compass. Until next time, keep looking up, because every planet has a story if we learn how to listen.